Your business is a reflection of you. And in this video, I will show you how to create the best version of yourself so that you can create the best version of your business. And I'm going to show you how to do all of this without requiring motivation. This is going to be about a 30-minute video. Look, if you can't sit through a 30-minute video that's going to show you how to be the best version of yourself and create the best version of your business without requiring motivation, then there is no point in even trying. That being said, let's get into the video. Your business is a reflection of you, okay? If you guys are an entrepreneur or you want to be an entrepreneur, listen up, because this will be one of the most important lessons you'll learn. Let's break this down. So your business is a reflection of you. Let me explain that. So this is what a business would look like. This is what a normal business might look like. You have all these little circles. These are people that are going to influence the business and the trajectory of the business. This big green circle here, this is going to be the entrepreneur, the founder, right? They can have a pretty sizable influence over the business. But then you have these 100 little blue circles, and these represent the employees, the other people that have an influence over the business. Your business probably doesn't look like this, right? This is what like a big business looks like with 100 employees. Look, if you can tell me, yeah, I have 100 employees, well, welcome to the channel. It's good to have you here, but it's probably not going to look like this. Your business is probably going to look something like this, okay? It's you, the founder, the entrepreneur, the CEO, and then maybe you have a virtual assistant, maybe you have a sales rep or two, but that's about it. It's essentially just you that's influencing the trajectory of the business. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means that the business is going to be a reflection of you. It's going to be a reflection of all the decisions you make, because at the end of the day, you're the person that has the biggest influence over this company, and basically all the influence. At this stage, you're influencing at least 80%, probably close to 100% of the results of the company, okay? Now, what does that mean? Well, that means every area of your life is going to influence your business, okay? Your diet is going to influence your business. Your exercise is going to influence your business. Your sleep is going to influence your business. Your social life is going to influence your business. All of this is going to influence your business, because at this stage right now, the only real variable that's moving the needle is you, which means the only variable that matters is the work that you put in to get results, to make changes in your business. So, what are the things that are going to influence your work? Well, first of all, your diet. What are you eating, right? If you wake up first thing in the morning and you smash a bowl of cereal and then you have 6 donuts, okay, you're going to feel really, really good for approximately 136 seconds. And then you're going to crash and burn, and you're probably not going to want to do any work. Is this going to increase or decrease the likelihood that I get any work done? Probably going to decrease the likelihood, and therefore, it's going to decrease the likelihood that I see success in my business, okay? Next thing is exercise. If you decide, nah, I don't need exercise isn't for me. Sure, okay, fine. What's going to happen is that over time, you're going to have less energy. You're going to have less energy, you're going to have a lower tolerance to pain because you haven't exposed yourself to pain, to increasing your endurance. You're probably not going to be good. And as a consequence, because you have less energy, you're going to get less work done, and it's going to impact your business. On the other hand, with diet, if you ate an amazing diet, a perfect diet, you just ate whole foods all day, you had incredibly stable levels of energy, well, you're very consistent. And if you're very consistent, it's probably going to increase the likelihood you get work done and allow you to grow your business. Same thing with exercise. If you decided, I'm going to start exercising more, well, what's going to happen is that you're going to increase your ability to tolerate pain, and you're also going to increase your endurance, your overall tank, which is going to increase the amount of work you can get done, which is going to grow your business. Okay? Sleep. If you decide, I'm going to be a hero and get 4 hours of sleep a night, guess what's going to happen? You're going to wake up the next day, you're going to be incredibly tired, which means you're probably not going to be able to get as much work done, and you're also going to feel these weird negative emotions because you're sleep deprived, because you're not at your optimal state, so you're going to start getting those feelings of fear, those feelings of doubt, those feelings like maybe this isn't going to work. That's probably not going to affect your business in a positive way. On the other hand, if you got absolutely immaculate, perfect sleep, then you're going to wake up the next day, you're going to have a fresh, clear mind, you're going to be well rested, you're going to have lots of energy that's going to allow you to make better decisions in your work and get more work done. And of course, as we know, your work is basically the only thing that's going to affect your business at this point. So that is going to positively affect your business. If we look at your social life, who do you hang around with? If you hang around with a bunch of people who are maybe going to get a job at some point, or they have a job, and all they say to you is, nah, this isn't going to work. Like, this is weird. I don't know what you're doing. This whole entrepreneurial thing, it's not going to work out for you. Planting little seeds of doubt in your mind whether this is going to actually work, this is probably not good. And if your friends are constantly saying, oh, let's go out, let's go drinking, or let's play the PlayStation, or let's eat this junk food, what's going to happen? Well, you're more likely to do that, and that's going to negatively affect your business. On the other hand, if you just hung out with 6, 7, 8-figure entrepreneurs, people that were absolutely dialed in, you would probably think, well, clearly this is possible. In fact, this is normal. All of my friends are doing incredibly well with their business. So why couldn't I do this? And you'll probably feed ideas off them. You'll probably start to make better decisions in your business, and that's going to positively affect your business. So I hope you can see here how your life, what you do on a day-to-day basis, is very, very much going to influence your business. And when you look at it like this, you might be thinking, well, hold on a second. That means that everything in my life is sort of a business decision. Yeah, it kind of is. What you eat is a business decision. Choosing to exercise is a business decision. Choosing to get proper sleep is a business decision. Who you choose to hang out with is a business decision. All of this stuff is going to influence your work and is going to influence your business, okay? Your business is a reflection of you, okay? I hope it's kind of starting to make sense here, okay? But that's what you do, okay? That's what you do on a day-to-day basis. But what about what's inside of you? What's inside you mentally, like how you feel emotionally? This is also going to present itself in your business, okay? So if you had the character trait, if you had the personality trait of being short-sighted, of only looking, weeks or months into the future, you were very impulsive and short-sighted, that would show itself in your business. You would probably try to take shortcuts. You would probably be constantly jumping around into different niches, going, I'm not making a 10K a month within the first 30 days of this business. I better try this thing because this might work. And you just jump around from shiny object to shiny object trying to take shortcuts. And guess what's going to happen? You're going to have started and failed 50 different businesses and you're not going to have gone anywhere. Because you were short-sighted in your personality, that presented itself in your business, okay? The next one is morality. If you're an immoral person, then you probably don't care about doing things that are scammy, promising big things and not delivering on them, okay? That will present itself in your business. Next one. If you're sloppy in your personal life, right? You're ill-disciplined, you don't really take things too seriously, that'll show itself in your business. It'll come across as unprofessional, and it's not going to look good, okay? On the flip side, if you were long-term thinking, if you thought, what's life going to be like for me in even a year's time, but more likely in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, what is this going to look like? Well, if you can start thinking in years and decades, you're going to have much larger growth potential in your business because you're not going to look at that shiny object and go, you know what? I need to go and do this thing. And then you go and do that thing. And then you realize, oh, hold on, I could do this thing. And then you just end up restarting all over again. If you're thinking long term, you're thinking, well, if I just stuck with what I'm doing now and I did it for 10 years, would it be unreasonable for me to achieve my goals? To not achieve my goals? Yes, probably. Okay? Because you're thinking long term and you probably stick with what you do and try and do it properly. Okay? The next thing is if you're a moral person, that's probably going to present itself in your business. If you really thought and if you really cared about your clients and your customers, you would probably try and get great results for them. And guess what? If you get great results for your customers, then they're probably going to tell their friends. And their friends are going to come on board. And their friends are going to get great results because you're a moral person. And they're going to tell more people. And you're going to grow a business. Fantastic. You're not immoral. You're not scamming people. And then they tell everyone not to join. And then you're in trouble. Okay? Last one is discipline. If you're a disciplined person, it's probably going to show itself in your business. You're probably going to come across as professional. You're probably going to come across as an actual legitimate business. Okay? So these, as you can tell here, it's not just your decisions, your diet, your exercise, your sleep, and your social life, but it's also who you are on the inside. All of this stuff is going to reflect itself in your business because your business is a reflection of you. Okay? So let's talk about risk. And I know risk isn't a sexy topic, but it's actually insanely important because people think about risk when it comes to their stocks and what they're investing in, but they rarely think about risks in terms of their business, okay? And your inconsistency, your inability to have a good diet, exercise consistently, sleep well, and hang around with good people, okay? This is going to present itself in your business as risk, okay? So to explain this, I'll use the example of a stock. So the value of a stock or a share is essentially the value of a publicly traded company. And the value of that is really just determined by two variables. It's determined by the expected return and the risk, okay? Those are the only two factors at play here, right? So there's 4 categories that I've created here based on the relationship between the risk and return. Now, if you're an entrepreneur, you're probably going to be in this upper bracket here, because if you're an entrepreneur, you fundamentally understand that I need to take on some sort of risk. I need to put some sort of skin in the game to get abnormal returns, to get asymmetric results, okay? Because if I just wanted to be a normal person, normal 9-to-5 worker, I can take on zero risk. I can go get a job. I can rock up at 9 a.m., go home at 5 p.m., get my 2 days off on the weekend, get my 4 weeks off a year, wear my collar around my, wear a tie around my neck like a collar, right? And I can do that for 40 years and then retire and live a pretty average life. I can take on very low risk, but I know that if I take on low risk, there's also quite a capped return, quite a capped potential return. So you're going to end up around here, around this section, which is like bonds. If you were a stock, you would be a bond, right? There's no chance that a government bond you buy is going to 50x in the next 10 years, okay? It's going to be stable. It's going to give you 5 to 10% returns, but it's very likely to default. It's very likely to fail, okay? Next, we have horse shit. It's quite hard to be in the horse shit category because it's very rare that you could take on incredibly high risk and also have quite low potential return. I mean, the only thing you could really do here is maybe you have a business where you're selling bacon to rabbis, or your business model is trying to steal people's wallets, okay? Where the potential return is like $100 cash and the risk is 10 years in prison, okay? So pretty unlikely you'll be in this category. The next one is the shitcoin category, and this is where you probably are right now. This is where most entrepreneurs wind up in, and that is where there is a high potential return. You know you've taken on some risk by being an entrepreneur, but you know there's quite a big payoff. But the issue is you're taking on quite a lot of risk, and you're actually taking on more risk than you need to take. And I'll explain to you how you can decrease the risk as we go through this video, but you're taking on unnecessarily high risk. You're kind of like a shitcoin. Like some random coin that you buy off the internet that is either going to go to zero next week or is going to a million X in value and you're going to become the richest man in the world, okay? But it's very risky. It's kind of like gambling. You don't really want to be in this category, but this is where most of us are. Then you have the unicorn category, and this is where everyone should aspire to be. This is where you have a high potential return, but you're taking on quite low risk. As we know, your business is a reflection of you. So how can you become a person that has quite low risk of failure, that has quite low risk of not getting this great return? Okay, let me show you how to do that. This is going to come down to your environment. There's not much more to it. It's simply just having the correct environment, the best possible environment. This is how you're going to go from the shitcoin category where you're taking on lots of risk. You know there's potential that your company can go to 1 million, 10 million a year, okay? But you're taking on risk. To bring yourself to unicorn category, you need to create the perfect environment, okay? There's 2 environments you could have, right? When we look at it on a very granular level, you can either have an environment that makes it difficult for you to grow your business, and that's probably where you are right now, or you can have an environment that is difficult to do anything but growing your business. And this is quite difficult to get yourself to, but when you can get yourself here, you're almost unstoppable. And the reason for that is that in this position here, the position where it's difficult to grow your business, the environment where it's difficult for you to grow your business, it requires motivation for you to actually grow your business. What's the problem with that? Well, motivation is fundamentally an emotion that makes it likely for you to do something. You can't really control emotions. And if you can't really control your emotions and you rely on an emotion to get anything done, what have you done? you've just really increased your risk. And if you increase your risk, you decrease the likelihood that you're going to get a great return, okay? We want to avoid this at all costs, but this is probably where you are right now. On the other hand, if you have an environment which is difficult to do anything that is not growing your business, then you would actually require motivation to get or to not get work done, to not grow your business. And I'll use this example here. So let's say you wanted to be in incredible shape. You wanted to be jacked out of your mind. And you know what? I could be the next Mr. Olympia. The only thing holding me back is I just eat too many cookies. Cookies are the only thing stopping me from being in insanely good shape. If you knew that was the case, would you put a jar of cookies on your desk? Well, probably not, because I don't care if you're David Goggins, at some point you're going to eat the cookies. And if you're going to eat the cookies, it's going to decrease the likelihood that you become the next Mr. Olympia, okay? On the other hand, if you didn't have cookies on you next to your desk, if you didn't even have cookies in your house, if you didn't have cookies in your city or in your country, right? You're probably going to be less likely to eat cookies, which means you're probably more likely to be the next Mr. Olympia, all right? Now, I use that example because most of the issues with us getting to grow our business is that we have an environment that's full of distractions. It's full of things that are saying, do this, do this, do this, and all these things that are telling you to do is things that are not growing your business. They're probably things that are actively destroying your business. And you have so many of these cues, so many of these triggers in your environment, making you want to do things that you're not supposed to do. You could be David Goggins, but you're going to do them eventually, right? Why would we rely on emotion, like motivation, to do something when we could just create an incredible environment where we don't need emotion at all, okay? So if you had an environment which did not constantly give you cues and triggers to do things you weren't supposed to do, in fact, it gave you cues and triggers to do things that you should be doing, like growing your business, you're set, you're golden. You're actually going to grow the business. And that is exactly what you can do. And if you do that, guess what's going to happen? You've just significantly reduced the risk. You've just significantly reduced the likelihood that you're not going to grow your business, okay? Pretty good position to be in. So, how do we do that? All right? There's essentially 3 categories that underpin your environment. You have your physical environment, you have your social environment, and you have your digital environment, okay? These are 3 different types of environments. And if you can learn to optimize all 3 of these environments, you can reduce your risk down as low as physically possible and get yourself in this unicorn category, okay? So let's talk about the physical environment, okay? What in your physical environment that you're interacting with on a day-to-day basis is moving you towards your goals, and what is taking you away from your goals? How can we create a physical environment that makes it as easy as possible for you to work on your business, to get in shape, to be healthy, to sleep properly, to eat properly? How do we make the best possible physical environment? And people come to my house, it's quite funny actually, people come to my house and they describe my house as a training ground, okay, like a training camp. And at least 5 people independently have said that. And the reason for that is that I don't have a bunch of, flashy things in the house. There's 2 paintings in my house and they're both in my bedroom, okay? These are the only 3 plants in the entire house. But what is in my house is a sauna in the backyard, an ice bath in the backyard, a home gym in the backyard, and a 700-liter chest freezer filled with over 200 kilos of beef, an entire cow of beef in my freezer. Why is that? Well, I knew that if I wanted to get in shape, if I wanted to have the perfect diet, the perfect exercise, the perfect sleep, because I have a good bedroom set up as well, then I want an environment that facilitates me doing that. So if I want to get into an ice bath, it's in my backyard. If I want to work out, it's in my backyard. If I want to do a sauna, it's in my backyard. If I'm trying to eat more meat, it's in my backyard. It's all there in my environment. It's very easy for me to do because there's so little friction between me trying to do what I want to do. So you need to create the best possible physical environment, because I bet you your physical environment is actively detracting from you. Why do you have a TV? Why do you have a PlayStation or an Xbox or a gaming PC? Okay? Why do you have junk food in the pantry? Why do you have all of these things that you know are not moving you towards your goals, but they're there in your environment? Okay? I remember I went back home a few weeks ago or a month ago now to my place to see my family, and there was a bunch of chocolate in the fridge. Okay, and I'm used to just having nothing but like what I've prepared for the week in terms of my meals in my fridge. So I don't have to exercise any willpower. I don't have to exercise any motivation to avoid bad things because they're just not in my environment. But when I went home, there's just a lot of chocolate in the fridge. And what happened is every time I opened the fridge, I had to say no to chocolate. And I didn't say no every time. Sometimes I ate the chocolate, okay? Because it was in the environment. It's literally like the cookies. It was just there. Because I created a fantastic physical environment where I live, it makes it very hard for me to not do the right things, okay? So the first one is your physical environment. Make sure you optimize that. The next thing, and this is probably the biggest one, is your social environment. There's a saying that you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and I think it's actually quite accurate. You want to surround yourself with people who do the activities that you want to do on a regular basis, because then that becomes normal, right? I used the example before of hanging out with high-level entrepreneurs. If all your friends were 8-figure entrepreneurs, then it would just feel weird. It would feel abnormal for you not to be doing that as well, right? So you'd probably start to do it. On the other hand, if all of your friends were unemployed or working jobs they hated and they ate like shit every day, they spend a bunch of time playing video games or scrolling, okay, then that would be normal, okay? And then you'd be more likely to do that. So surrounding yourself with the right people is very important because people also are going to influence the beliefs you hold. And the beliefs you hold are going to affect the actions you take, aka the work you do, which is going to influence your business. So it's very important to have the right social life. And when I was 18 years old, I left home, like I left my family, I flew to the other side of the country, and I completely reset my social life, okay? And it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. And sometimes you really need to just get out of your current environment. And I didn't leave here because my family was holding me back, but certainly friendships, relationships I had, who I was spending a lot of time with, didn't exhibit the traits that I wanted to have, okay? And if you can create an amazing social environment, you're set for success. The next one is digital environment, okay? It's very close between social and digital environment as to what is the most important, in my opinion, because digital environment is what we interact with so often. I mean, for example, the real estate on your phone, that home screen on your phone is probably one of the most valuable pieces of real estate in your life. I mean, you probably interact with that thing 50 times a day. So for most people, their home screen on their phone is essentially a billboard with 50 different advertisements saying you need to go on Snapchat, you need to check your 15 messages on Messenger, you need to go on Instagram, you need to check your emails, you need to go to Spotify, right? You need to do all these things. Take my attention, my attention, my attention. Here's TikTok. This is really fun. You know, when you open this feels really good. You have all of these advertisements trying to take your attention, trying to pull your attention. If you're an entrepreneur, your attention is probably your most valuable and most important asset. But you have a digital environment that's just draining your attention. I'll show you what my home screen looks like on my phone, and people think it's weird, okay? It is kind of weird, but that's what my home screen looks like. There's no advertisements, there's no billboards saying do this, do that, right? It's very dialed in. And what it's doing is it's making it difficult to do anything that is not growing my business, anything that's not working, because I understand that technology is very valuable. There's a lot of incredible utility you can get out of your technology. But if your technology is set up in a way that is very, very distracting, that is very likely for you to get distracted, then it's not good. All right, I'll show you my desktop for my home screen as well on my laptop. Like, this is what it looks like, okay? There's no real estate here that's trying to pull your attention. It's pretty zoned in. It's pretty locked in, okay? But create the right digital environment. It's incredibly important. When you can master these three, when you can create an incredible physical environment, an incredible social environment, and an incredible digital environment, you're going to be unstoppable. It's very hard to stop you because you're now in the unicorn category. You've just reduced the risk, increased the likelihood that you're going to grow your business and you're going to succeed. It's a good place to be because you've now made it difficult to do anything that is not growing your business. Good place to be. Okay. Now, I told you how motivation should not be relied upon, and I absolutely, completely 100% agree with that. You should not rely on motivation, but it's nice to have it, okay? And we can increase the likelihood that we're motivated. And on top of that, we can influence our personality, okay? And I'll show you how we do this. So your brain releases a certain amount of dopamine on a daily basis. This is like your normal level of dopamine, the tonic amount of dopamine that you release on a day-to-day basis. What most of us do is we wake up and we instantly check our phone and get a spike of dopamine, okay? And then, maybe at breakfast time, you're scrolling TikTok, okay? And then after that, you're probably checking the news, okay? And then it's a lunch break, time to play some games on my phone, And then just before bed, it's been a long day of work, so let me watch some Netflix, okay? Throughout the day, you're getting huge spikes of dopamine. You're feeling really, really good, and it was quite easy to do, right? To achieve this amount of dopamine, you just had to sit on your ass and move your finger a little bit. That was basically it. And you received insane amounts of dopamine. But what's going to happen is your brain's going to go, well, this is abnormal. You're producing way too much dopamine. This is out of the ordinary. And what your brain has to do is go, well, this is out of the ordinary. I need to regulate this so it's normal again. So your brain will do what your brain is supposed to do, and it will bring your dopamine down for absolutely everything. It'll reduce your baseline so that these big spikes do not seem out of the ordinary. Okay? Now, the problem with this is then when you go to actually do some work and you go to work out, it produces so much less dopamine in comparison. And because your dopamine levels are already so low, these are excruciatingly boring and tedious activities now. And you've now made working incredibly boring and tedious, okay? If working is incredibly boring and tedious, how do you think that's going to influence your business? Probably going to stunt your growth, okay? So the other issue is that you've now reinforced the behavior of being impulsive, thinking short term. Because when you can feel this good by doing so little, you're going to constantly want to do it. So, for example, if you're scrolling TikTok, right, the effort required to do that is put your hand in your pocket, pull your hand out, swipe up to open your phone, open TikTok, and start scrolling. And within maybe 5 seconds, you're receiving crazy amounts of dopamine, okay? Now, when you go to do something like working, and you have to sit down and you have to do something incredibly difficult, and you're not going to see results for not just seconds, but maybe weeks or maybe months or years, okay? This is going to be so much less appetizing, and it doesn't feel good. So your brain's going to associate work with boring, hard, not good, and TikTok with easy, fun, good. And you're going to reinforce yourself to do these compulsive behaviors. And as you know, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're trying to grow a business, you can't afford to think in the short term. You can't afford to be impulsive. We've seen what happens if you think in the short term, all right? You take shortcuts in your business, you're scammy, you're unprofessional. This will increase your risk. This is not good for your business, okay? So the solution for this is we need to start systematically removing these items from our life. These big hits of dopamine that aren't providing us any benefit in the long run. And what's going to happen is you're going to increase your natural, normal level of dopamine because your brain's going to go, well, this guy has very low dopamine levels right now. We need to bring this up to normality. And what happens is now things like working out actually feel a lot better, okay? And now that you're not receiving spikes from useless, pointless activities, your brain is going to have to start finding dopamine somewhere else. So now working, okay, is going to feel like your TikTok used to feel. And working out is also going to feel incredibly good. So now what happens is that your brain is associating feeling good with working, right? Work is good. Work feels good, all right? That's obviously going to increase the likelihood you work because you actually enjoy it. You start enjoying doing it, okay? And when you've removed the association between feeling good and doing impulsive activities, what's going to happen? Well, it's going to start influencing your personality. You're going to start thinking more long term. as we know, this is going to be very, very beneficial for your business. You're going to be a more moral person because you're not looking for quick wins. You're going to be more disciplined. Of course, you've removed all these impulsive activities. All right. You're going to have more energy because you're not draining your energy on things like scrolling or, wasting your energy on politics or current affairs or keeping up with celebrities. Okay. And you can have more motivation because you have more dopamine. Okay. You feel a lot better. You have more energy, more dopamine. This is going to influence your personality as it's going to influence your motivation. And if you can have the right personality, right? When I say the right personality, there's no right or wrong, but this is a personality that's more designed for growth, for getting good outcomes, okay? If you can have this personality coupled with more motivation and the fact that you don't even need that motivation because you have such locked in, such optimal environments, both physically, socially, and digitally, that you never actually need motivation in the first place, this is going to put you in a position where it's difficult for you to do anything that is not growing your business. It's going to decrease your risk, put you in this category where you have incredibly low risk and incredibly high expected returns, and you're going to start to take actions that grow yourself and grow your business. You're going to be set. It's going to be very hard for anyone to beat you, okay? And that is why I do what I do. So look, if you guys are digital entrepreneurs, if you would like help creating these optimal environments, all right, and removing all of these impulsive behaviors so that you can focus on growing yourself and growing your business, then I have a link in the description below. You can click on that and check that out, and I would be happy to help you. That was the end of this video. Look, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe. Otherwise, I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video.